Hello, fellow fools, and welcome to your timeless pick a pile reading. My name is Bren. I use they, them pronouns, and I will be guiding you all through this very magical card reading experience today. I have my little magic wand that I just think is so whimsical and fun, which is perfect for this Pisces full moon eclipse that we're experiencing at the time of recording this reading. Now, even though this reading is themed around this Pisces full moon eclipse, it doesn't mean that you can't watch this any other time. You know, this is a timeless reading. So whenever you feel called to receive the messages of this video, there's probably a reason for that. So feel free to stay tuned for the messages that are contained within this video. How this works is we have timestamps, so we have different sections of the video that you can kind of scroll around, choose your own adventure kind of energy, or you can listen to the whole thing. There's messages contained in the whole thing, but we start with the astrological overview of what's happening at the time of this recording. Then we're going to go into the collective reading, tap into what everyone might be experiencing for this this collective energy at this time, and then from there you get to choose your own pile. You can definitely listen to both again if you really want to, but that's where we get a little bit more specific. So if you are called more to one group than another, then you'll want to choose that group and receive the messages within that. So without further ado, we are going to start by talking about the astrology of this eclipse. And you know what? Anytime we have an eclipse, there's a lot of fated beginnings, fated endings, especially a full moon eclipse. This is a lunar eclipse, and this is really about, you know, great endings or clarity around things, climaxes. The full moon is like where we feel the tension of like the sun is here and the moon is here and they're looking at each other. They're in an opposition and they can illuminate each other, and also they can you know, there's a tension point between like when you are face to face with something, and that can push us to grow, that can push us to see ourselves a little bit better because, you know, through an opposition, we can, you know, see ourselves more clearly, even though we might not be the same. There's some sort of reflection being had there. And especially when we're talking about lunations, the moon, we're automatically talking about reflective energy anyway, because the moon can only be seen through reflecting the light of the sun, which again, during full moon, you can see it the most. So anyway, it is a partial lunar eclipse, which just means like it's probably not going to be seen, you know, but it is powerful nonetheless. And so this Pisces partial lunar eclipse is going to be happening on the 27th of August, 2026 at 10:18 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So the overview of like what I'm just feeling for this lunation is that it's great endings. This is like a grand finale of the Pisces Virgo lunar nodes story that's been playing out for the last, I don't know, like year and a half, 2 years. So this is that grand finale where we're wrapping things up. We're seeing things unfold from the last year and a half and just being in this reflective mode of like, okay, because of how things have transpired and the decisions that we've made through the last year and a half, this is the grand finale. This is the culmination of what is happening with all of that. So my biggest recommendation for you during this time is really reflect in that year and a half period. You know, have you been keeping up with what you want? And basically the North Node is one of the lunar nodes that talks about where we're headed or where we're growing. It's like a very expansive energy, whereas the South Node is more about like what we're releasing and getting rid of, or like what needs to go. It also can be past life things as well, karmic things. And so the lunar nodes have been in Pisces, North Node, and Virgo, South Node for the last year and a half. This is what I'm kind of talking about this like grand finale, because the nodes have already switched now into the Leo and Aquarius axis. So again, this lunation signifies for us, this is the end of this storyline. This is the grand finale. So really paying attention to, you know, Virgo and Pisces are the healers of the zodiac if they're operating, you know, healthily. And so, or like, you know, in its highest regard, I suppose. Pisces is going to be more of that like intuitive spiritual healer, whereas Virgo is the more practical, like, oh, you got a boo-boo, let's put a band-aid on that, let's disinfect it kind of healer. Very hands-on. So we've been trying to release, you know, that South Node of Virgo, we've been trying to release these tendencies of Virgo that are not helpful. Like if you've been doing your work and, you know, being conscious about what these astrological storylines are trying to provide for us, then the last year and a half, you might want to evaluate like what kind of Virgo tendencies that are unhealthy have I been purging. So that could be things and themes surrounded by like perfectionism, maybe over catering or over servicing other people. You know, there needs to be a balance, right? So if you're always continuously serving someone or helping them, is that actually balanced? You know, we can help someone in need, but are we over helping someone to the point of enabling them or not empowering them to also help themselves? That's kind of like that Virgo energy that we've been hopefully releasing, those toxic traits of Virgo. And we're trying to lean into more of the adding Piscean qualities that are really good. Dreaming is a beautiful Pisces quality, and so is being creative and being connected with empathy to something greater than ourselves and to other people, right? So, you know, there's also negative qualities of Pisces too, like escapism, those kinds of things. So hopefully you have not been amplifying those things, but this is just a really good time to be honest with yourself and maybe even look at your personal birth chart and see like, where is Pisces in my chart? Where is Virgo in my chart? And what areas of life is that in? And what have I been adding or contributing to in my own worlds? Oh my gosh. And Frank is my cat. She's trying to catch a fly that's in the room. And so there's a little bit of chaos. So maybe that is very eclipse energy too, where it's like there's, especially because it's Leo season at the time of this recording. We're actually entering Virgo season, but you know, there's been a lot of drama. There's, you know, Jupiter is still in Leo, and it will be still for the next year. So it's like there's drama in the air. There's storylines playing out and all these things. There's, again, drama. So things can just feel more intense than maybe they even really truly are, or maybe we like, you know, over dramatizing things just because it does make things more interesting. It does. So just keep in mind that things do feel more amplified during eclipse seasons. And so like if you're feeling a little bit more extreme at this time, that is normal. Just keep in mind that fated events are kind of shifting at this time. So really paying attention to whatever storylines are playing out. And I've kind of been saying this for the last year or so, like 2025, 2026 has really been about us not only closing a chapter, but closing an entire book. If we think about all the changes that have been happening between now and like a year ago, maybe even 2 years ago, well, even since 2020, but especially in the last year or two at the time of this recording anyway, you know, things like AI have profoundly transformed the way that we're living our day-to-day lives. You know, even going through a drive-through, there's now, you know, AI taking our orders, and a lot of art is like, you'll see flyers that are AI made now. There's less, you know, handmade things. So not that that's necessarily entirely a bad thing, but you know, it could be distracting in certain ways, and also can just be jarring to our human experience of like, this is not how things usually have been. And so the adapting has maybe been harder for certain people, especially if you have more fixed sign energy in your chart or in your, you know, aura. So just keep that in mind, that we're going through really profound shifts. So really think about what you're creating, not only for this new chapter of your story, but this entire new book that can really be completely different from what you've experienced in the past, and hopefully for the better. That's really up to you to decide. And also there's certain things that happen in our life that we can't control, so surrendering to that, what we can't control, and also leaning more into like, okay, what can I control, and where do I need to surrender versus where do I need to take action? And that's going to help set you up for success moving forward. I don't think I talked about what degree in Pisces this partial lunar eclipse is happening. It's going to be at 4 degrees and 54 minutes of Pisces, so the early degrees in the first decan of Pisces. So, oh my gosh, Frank is going crazy chasing this fly, and I'm honestly really glad that she's a hunter, and usually she would be, you know, outside at this time, but I'm not supervising her, so she has to stay inside at this time. She's wired. But anyway, maybe there's some sort of energy within yourself as well that needs to be released during this time, and just really expressing yourself, movement. And, you know, if you have your eye on the prize, like the thing that we can learn about predators is that they see something, they want something, they're going to go for it, right? And so lock into your prey. What is something that you want, and how can you lock in on that and be patient as well? I'm kind of feeling this alligator energy. The alligator is actually my animal of the year. And so it's really about that strategy of being like patient. And like, if you see something in the water, if you just go after it, you might chase it away before you can actually catch it. But if you're patient and really instill the calmness of the waters, then your prey won't be scared before you can get it, right? And this is not about attacking people. This is not about the kind of, you know, being a person that, again, attacks prey in a negative way, or like takes advantage of people or beings or things. It's really about opportunities that I'm feeling that is your prey, rather than like taking advantage of people, okay, or eating them. Okay, we don't need to do that. So what else do I want to talk about this lunation? Like I already said, Jupiter is one of the rulers of Pisces. It's the traditional ruler of Pisces, and that's in Leo right now. So both Leo and Pisces are the two most creative signs of the zodiac. So now might be a really great time to express creatively or dream of things, like get more ideas. Role play can be a really great way to tap into like what you want. Like there's like manifestation techniques where I forget what it's called, but you basically, I think it's called scripting actually, where, you know, in a reality, you just like script, like if you want something, how would that actually unfold? And you write it out like, oh, I've always wanted to have this business. Now I have it. And I love my employees who are very dedicated to the business. And I love that I'm not worried about money within the business. I love how my books are balanced in the business, you know, those kinds of things can manifest in great ways if we, you know, script them out and really dream big and get creative about like things are possible. And something that's been coming up with a lot of my readings lately has just really been reminding the clients, and, you know, that just because something has been true in the past doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be true in the future. So maybe like you've always had to hustle and you've always had to, you know, sacrifice your own health in order to make money and make ends meet. But just because that was true in the past doesn't mean that that's necessarily true in the future, you know, but we can often be attracted to the things that we know. So we might just naturally want to go into that realm of, oh, well, I have to suffer in order to make ends meet, you know, but maybe this is a cycle that's trying to be broken for you, and being like, you're not in that place anymore. You've overcome a lot of those challenges. You're more secure in certain ways. So try not to self-sabotage. That's something that Pisces can be definitely a victim to their own self-sabotage, you know, so just try not to get in your own way, because there's enough obstacles outside of you that might interfere with what you need and what you want. So don't be your own block to your own desires. There's a saying that me and my friend Lily say a lot in our new moon workshops, where, you know, don't reject yourself first before anyone else or the universe even has a chance to. And what that kind of means is like, don't deny yourself of a dream that you haven't even shared or like seen if it was actually possible yet. If you have a crush on someone and like want to ask them out, but you're just like, oh no, they would never say yes. It's like, you know, there's context to everything, but you know, you never truly would know unless you asked, right? So just really be aware of like those ways that you reject yourself before other people even have a chance to, because don't keep yourself from your own blessings. You just might get what you want if you claim your dreams, right? Or if you claim the possibility of something. And you know what? Communication is key. So, you know, you can communicate how you feel. You can ask for what you want. And if someone says no, they say no, but at least you tried. You know, I recently asked for a raise, and did I get it? No. But am I happy that I asked? Yes, because I also was given a deadline, like maybe at the end of the year when we reevaluate budgeting, we can talk about it. No promises, but we can talk about it then. So now I'm like, okay, well, maybe at the end of the year I can ask again and like just follow up and see if that dream of mine is more possible. So just keep in mind, and just because something's delayed doesn't mean that it's denied. So, you know, I am still very hopeful of getting my raise at some point in the near future. So Anything else I want to talk about this lunation? Yes. One more thing. Traditionally, Pisces is ruled by, or excuse me, traditionally Pisces is ruled by Jupiter, which is in Leo right now. So that's the creative element I was just talking about. But also a lot of modern rulers or modern astrologers will also see Neptune as a ruler of Pisces. And in my practice at this point, I'm not really vibing with that. I think the outer planets are kind of like a different story, especially because they're newer and we're still uncovering what they might mean for us as a collective and as a whole. But I do want to acknowledge that, like, that does have an influence. Like, Neptune is very similar to Pisces in a lot of way. That dreaminess and illusion kind of energy, they definitely both have that watery nature about them. And so, like, in that perspective of also seeing this lunation through the lens of, excuse me, Neptune, it's in Aries. And it's newly there, and it's going to be there for quite a while. You know, Neptune stays in a sign for many years. So it's also retrograde at the time of this lunation. So maybe reviewing what your hopes and dreams are. And in the sign of Aries, Aries wants to take action. Aries is fiery. I think of like Neptune Aries as like a sparkler. You know, it's like so majestic and sparkly and fun, you know, but also there can be a danger to it, but there is like a fun fanfare kind of like exciting thing, but it does fizzle out, right? So this is also about really analyzing what kind of dreams you have that actually have withstanding power, because Saturn has also been in Aries for, you know, the last few months, since February, I believe, of 2026. And it's going to be there for another couple of years. And so Saturn being that planet of structure and longevity and time, sharing space with Neptune about these big dreams kinds of things, I really do believe that this can be an opportunity for us to really make our dreams solid and give it a long-term plan and give it a longevity, you know. But we have to, you know, Neptune also can have this, you know, dreamy, unrealistic nature about it as well. And Saturn is that very realistic nature. And again, Aries is very impulsive and very much like, I want something, I want it now. Saturn's delaying that, but also the dream space is just like in la la land. So all of those things balancing together with this lunation might also be reminding us, like, take our dreams seriously, but also be realistic about that. And if we actually truly want it, because we might also be dreaming about a lot of different things right now, but we can't have all of our dreams come true all at the same time. Usually, sometimes miracles can happen for sure, but oftentimes, like, we don't get married and we don't have a baby and we don't, you know, get a new job and we don't get our dream home all at the same time, you know? So this is really about like, okay, I want all of those things. What is the timeline for that? What is the realistic thing about that? And also being open to other possibilities as well. That's kind of that balance that I'm feeling for that. And at the time of this lunation as well, you know, the sun's going to be in Virgo, and that is our practical, mutable earth sign. And Mercury, its ruler, is also going to be in Virgo at that time. And so it's basically Kazemi at that time, which means that there's going to be a lot of clarity and like aha moments that might come up as well, especially when it comes to those practical plans. And Mercury is also trickster energy. So just be aware that, like, just because something's true now, not everything might be true, especially with that Neptune influence I was telling you about. So just take things with a grain of salt, but also don't let that keep you from moving forward either, you know. So those are really the messages that I have about the astrology portion of this reading. We're now going to be moving into the collective reading portion of this video. I do want to start by just talking about Virgo and Pisces a little bit. So the mantra of this lunation is balance spirituality and practicality. And I think that's really beautiful because, again, like, spirituality is more of the Piscean energy and practicality is more of that Virgo energy. And you can't have a Pisces full moon without the influence of that Virgo sun, right? So that's really what we're trying to find through this time, is really balancing like that dreamy nature, the wonder, the creativity, the spirituality with a practical plan, being grounded in the realm that we're living, which is the earth realm. I want to read a little bit about Virgo because we are entering Virgo season as of today, the time that I'm recording this. So, ruled by tricky Mercury, these earthy signs make their list and check it a million times. Virgos, symbolized as the Virgin, are all about perfectionism. They are one of the most detail-oriented signs in the zodiac and will not stop until the job is done just right. They are often the most analytical and the most organized in the astrology wheel. They have many hidden talents, though they are often afraid to share that with others because of a fear of imperfection. But when they loosen up and let others in, they are amazing friends that you'll have for life. Which, that last sentence, whatever. I think that's just basic, whatever. But I think there's a lot of value in what this card has to say about Virgos. I actually think that both Virgos and Pisces struggle with perfectionism. A lot of perfectionism is put onto the Virgo, but as a Pisces, a heavy Pisces person myself with absolutely no Virgo placements, I also struggle with that perfectionism. And I think the difference between the Virgo perfectionism versus the Pisces perfectionism is the Pisces is the daydreamer. The fantasy, like life can never live up to the fantasy that Pisces can create in the head, right? So the perfectionism comes from like, honestly, a constant sense of disappointment sometimes of reality because it just is never going to meet the perfect vision that we have of our lives or of whatever we're curating in our own daydreamy space, right? Whereas Virgo is more detail oriented about their perfectionism, where it's like, how can I actually mold and manipulate the earth and like earthly things in order to have a sense of perfectionism, whether it's a very well organized spreadsheet or through a very meticulously symmetrical art piece that they're creating or something like that. So really just keeping in mind that, like, again, the healer dynamic between both Virgo and Pisces, they have this ability to heal others, yet also if they over self-sacrifice, which both signs can often do, then it's that energy of not putting your oxygen mask on first before assisting others. And how are you going to help more people if you're constantly suffocating, you know? So that's the divine balance between those two signs. Now, the two decks that we're going to be working with today are the Animal Dreaming Oracle cards and also the Lovers Oracle. And these are both decks that I got this last weekend. And I also, where I got this like little fairy wand, it was at a fairy market here in Denver, Colorado at Town Hall Collective or Collaborative, whatever it's called. And it was just so fun. It was very magical and mystical, and I just really enjoyed it. So I'm hoping that the magic of the event is infused in these cards. And today's kind of the first day that I'm not really working with tarot specifically for these readings. I'm picking two oracle cards or oracle decks. And the reason I decided that is because Pisces is just very dreamy and less structured than, you know, Virgo or other signs. And I was just kind of wanting to embrace that Piscean energy of like, we don't need to always lean on the structure of things like tarot that has a lot of tradition in order to get the messages that we need. So something to consider here. We're going to start with an animal dreaming oracle card for this collective reading. And we have number 29, which is about the frog. And it says that the keyword is cleansing. And I absolutely love the frog. It makes me think of my sister because I drew a card for her one time and it was the frog, and she's had it on her cork board since. And so I literally, what was the other card? Oh, I have another frog card. I'm about to see her next week. And I've been saving this little frog card for her because every time I see frogs, I think of her. So maybe like what this is saying is like us collectively, we're kind of maybe leaning on people we're close to, or maybe we're being reunited with people, or leaning on our community members in order to experience some of this cleansing energy that is needed at this time. Because again, a full moon can feel very overwhelming. That on top of an eclipse, it's like a full moon on steroids, right? So it's going to feel extra amplified. And a lot of people also, like, especially in the Piscean energy, we're all connected in the Pisces water. If we think about Pisces, it's the fish in the water. We're all in the same school. We're in the same, community in the water. And so, sometimes you can lose a sense of identity with that. And so, really understanding like, yes, we're all in this together. We're all eating the same foods. We're in the same water. Yet also we're all individuals and acting our individual part within that collective. So I feel like cleansing is just really identifying like who is in this with us. Who are we sharing our lives with? Who are we sharing our emotional experiences with? And is that well boundaried? And are we feeling like nourished by that? Or is there some sort of cleansing that needs to happen either within our own space or within our relationships that will help, this next story in our lives, this new beginning that's happening. 29 is also a number that makes me think of, a Saturn return. Usually you're around 29 years old when your Saturn return comes. And that's really a sense of, when we're having our final for our adulthood, like before your Saturn return, your first Saturn return, I should say, you're accumulating experiences and lessons. And by the time that your Saturn return rolls around, that's when Saturn's testing you. Like, did you learn your lessons that I was trying to teach you these last 29-ish years? And this is your final. So yeah, maybe you passed your midterms, but if you don't, keep up with your lessons, you are bound to maybe repeat them or repeat cycles. So I just feel a lot about like breaking cycles at this time. Frogs are also really, what's the word I'm looking for? Adaptable, I suppose. Like they're both able to be in the water, but also on land, depending on the breed. And also they start as tadpoles. They start as, these beings that just have a tail in the water, again, as a group. And as they grow and mature, they then can grow legs and then they can actually access this new world on land, right? So I feel like you're maybe evaluating, or maybe the collective is evaluating like where we are in that process, or remembering what it was like to be, legless, and really, hopefully appreciating that we have legs now and that we have more choice because we're more developed and more mature. So those are the messages I'm getting from that energy. Now I'm going to pick a Love Oracle card. And I love this deck because they actually are shaped like hearts. This is my first deck that has that shape. And I think that's really beautiful. And also, they're not as hard to shuffle as I thought they would be. So anyway, this is beautiful. The card that we chose here has like a beautiful white dove with, it even looks like a full moon or a sun above it. It's some sort of illuminating light. And it just seems very angelic, peaceful. It even seems like this dove has like an olive branch in their mouth or some sort of, usually it looks like a peace offering to me. And usually olive branches symbolize that. So it just looks so angelic and beautiful, very crown chakra-esque energy. And the card says, you may not always understand why certain things happen. However, there is always a higher purpose to the events in your life. Through turmoil, a blessing will soon be revealed. Love that. Love that. Because I feel like us collectively, especially with eclipse shifting and things like that, sometimes we're put on a track that we were not expecting. Sometimes we're, it's a time of great endings a lot of the time. So it's sad to leave something, right? But sometimes endings can be blessings in disguise. And sometimes we're even excited for something to end. Sometimes we're excited to, move on from a job or some sort of ending, but you still have that melancholy of like, dang, I'm just never going to be in this space with these same people ever again, so there can be a melancholy about that as well. And so I feel like this card is just reminding us like to look at the glass half full, because the more that we have an optimistic perspective of things, the easier our mental health will have, and just our life will be, because the more optimistic we are, the more we are likely to attract more positive experiences. Someone can experience the exact same thing, like say two people are in a car accident together, and one person is just so upset about their insurance rates going up, and they're just so upset that they were now late for the event they were supposed to go to, whatever. But the other person in the vehicle who was in the exact same accident might be like, geez, I'm so glad that we're alive. I'm so glad we got out without any injuries. I'm so glad that the other person involved in the accident was okay. And, you know, accidents happen, you know, and you just never know. Maybe they bumped into someone, or maybe they were late for something that would have been disadvantageous for them in some kind of way. You know, maybe they missed, you know, some sort of boring lecture, which again, like, there's a cost to everything. But I don't know. It's just like, I also am of the belief that, like, if you have a glass half full, you have more room to fill it with more stuff. Whereas if you just had a cup that was full, you can't add anything to it. Or, you know, I don't know. There's just like an energy about just taking your life in stride and trying to see things from the highest perspective, because you just never know when a blessing's in disguise, basically, you know? So that's what this card I really think is saying, is that a lot of us collectively might be feeling some sort of turmoil. That's literally what this card says. Through turmoil, a blessing will soon be revealed. And without challenge, without things being hard sometimes or not going our way, how can we appreciate when they do? I think about a spoiled brat kid. Like, they're not going to appreciate the chocolate milk that they're given, you know, because they get it on tap anytime they want. But then when they don't have it, that's when they throw a fit, right? And it's like, wow, you really can't live without chocolate milk? Like, that's a sad existence for you, because life is so much bigger than chocolate milk, right? So I just feel like that's what we collectively are experiencing right now, is that we're trying to find and understand the higher purpose of things. There's a lot of things that we in our human nature just won't be able to understand. Why are there horrible things happening in this world? Why are there injustices? Why are these things happening? But the more that we can just trust that there's some bigger story playing out, and just we're trying our best through whatever we're given, that's where the blessings will emerge. And that's where, you know, our mental health will improve. Mental health keeps coming up a lot, like, intuitively for this group and for this collective reading. So I just wonder if there's certain people who are either, you know, finally addressing the importance of their mental health, or maybe they're getting so burnt out that they have no choice but to face the reality of them needing help, or them needing to address their mental health stuff, because sometimes things have to get so bad that you actually do something about it. Because if you just have mild depression and you're high functioning with that, you know, are you actually going to go to a doctor to get meds or go to a therapist? Like, maybe not. Whereas if it was severe enough, you would actually have to go get the treatment that you needed, you know? And so just really keeping in mind that for some people that threshold is different, you know. Some people, it needs to get really bad before they actually feel called to change it. And some people will just never change it, even if it gets so bad. You know, I'm thinking about someone I know in my own life, and he just finished his second Saturn return. So he's approaching 60. I think he's going to turn 60 in the next month or two. But he just keeps failing his lessons, you know. He just keeps ignoring it, and his life sucks. I would not want to live his life, right? But he made his bed, and he, no matter how bad it gets for him, he doesn't know any other way, and he has no spirituality. He has nothing that he can lean on to improve his life circumstance. He's kind of stuck there because he's just one of those people where it doesn't matter how bad it gets. He's in the cycle that he's in. He's choosing comfort over growth every time. And just because something's the comfort zone doesn't mean it's actually comfortable, you know. It doesn't mean that it's actually good. It's just what he knows, you know. So just really understanding that a lot of us are in that moment of either breakthrough or staying in our own cage that we've created for ourselves. You know, this person I'm talking about has so much privilege. He's very well off financially, and he's got a lot of flexibility. He's got a lot of privilege in a lot of ways, but he's also been his own enemy in a lot of other ways. And so even though he has certain privileges that he could use to empower himself, and he actually has power over others, he chooses to be a doormat for other people. And it makes me really sad, because he's such a nice guy. And in fact, he's not even in my life anymore, because of the decisions that he's made for himself. Not on my own accord. I know him through proxy of another family member, but it's just really sad because now he's not going to be at holiday parties with us or anything anymore because that family member had to set a boundary with him because he was just such a doormat by other people in his life that it was impacting his other relationships that were actually healthier and trying to help him, you know? So everyone's a teacher. Remember that, especially the people who seem to be not learning their lessons, or sometimes the worst people in our lives are the best teachers because it's like, wow, I really don't want to be like them. I really don't want to be around that person. Maybe you need to set better boundaries because sometimes, again, things have to get so bad that you actually are pushed to make a decision that you may not have been urged to do otherwise. Because, yeah, I'm thinking about people who don't leave jobs and stuff. It's like, yeah, they're not happy, but it's not so bad that they feel that push, you know? That's literally what happened to me at my last job before I started doing this full time. I was working for the government. It was honestly a really sweet gig until it wasn't, until like they were making us do cold calls and stuff. And I was like, this was not in the original job description. They did not train me at all whatsoever to do this. They threw me in, or, you know, they wanted me to do it. And I was like, no, you can find another job for me if you want, but this was not in my original job description. And I'm not a cold calling person. You'll never catch me doing that. I can barely make a phone call, period. You know, so, you know, it wasn't a good fit. And it got bad enough that I was like, I need to take this leap into something new. And you know what? It was such a blessing. It was very stressful at the time because I was like, how am I going to pay my bills? Like, am I going to make it on my own? And there were times of struggle, and I still struggle from time to time, but I'm a lot more stable now that I've had, I think that's been like 3 years-ish now that I've been doing this, and I've survived. You know, I'm fine. I'm doing the thing. So I think a lot of us are being pushed in that direction right now collectively, and it can be really scary and dysregulating for a lot of people. So just keeping that in mind too, that like, just because someone's forced into growth of some kind doesn't make it easy. And in retrospect, it might be hee hee ha ha, like I'm so glad that happened. But in the moment, it's very dysregulating and it can be very scary. So we're all being asked to make some sort of leap with this frog, leaping from our lily pad to lily pad. Or maybe we need to jump in the water entirely and cleanse our entire lives and start fresh. Maybe even jump into a new pond, you know, new environment. But that's up to each of us to individually decide. And just also remember that your journey is yours and other people's are theirs. And there's only so much you can do to influence someone else. You know, you can lead someone to water, but you can't make them drink it. So if someone, you know, for example, like an addict doesn't choose healing or recovery for themselves, there's nothing you can do to force recovery on that person or force sobriety on that person. They have to make some of those decisions on their own. So just also keep in mind that, like, stay in your lane. And you can, again, help lead someone to water. But if it's draining you so much to try to make this horse drink it, maybe you need a new horse, you know, because it's like, again, you can't force that. And it's not your responsibility to save people. You know, you can help people. We all should be helping people, but also if it's at your own detriment, if by you helping someone else, you have to constantly like give up your oxygen mask and share it, or like, you know, that's exhausting. Focus on you. Everyone's got their own journey. Definitely help people in need and all those things. Just don't sacrifice yourself so much to the point that you miss out on your journey. And yeah. So the last thing we're going to do for this collective message is to pick a special Bren card from the Bren deck. And this deck is always evolving, always changing, because if you do book a reading with me, you get to go home with one of these bad boys. They are cards collected from many different places. We've already got a card coming out for us, which is really interesting because that is a card that I think last reading, it was another part of this card. This card is like a snippet of a bigger pinup picture that was here. And so I believe last reading, for one of the readings, we picked, I think she had boots on. And so this is like the upper half of her. We're moving on up. And this pinup lady is holding a rope. And it's a more abstract thing. And so she's wearing white shorts, there's a green background, and she's holding this rope. And this pinup girl was like a, what's it called? Like a cowgirl kind of vibe. So if we're thinking about a cowgirl with a rope, this is something about lassoing in. And it kind of is reminding me of the message that we were getting for the astrological overview, where it's like, you know, if you have your eye on a prize, you can lasso it in. You have the tool you need. It's like the magician card, where it's like you have all the tools, but a magician who doesn't use their own wand is no more powerful than the average Joe, right? So I really feel like this card, our good luck card, this good luck Bren card, is telling us, like, follow our heart. That's that green color. And that's our tool that we use in order to get what we want. But we just can't get what we want unless we trust what we know to be true within ourselves, and not always overthinking things, but really trusting what's within ourselves, because we have all the tools that we need to get what we want. But if we never use the tools that we have, then how do we expect to get that horse if we don't lasso it in, you know? So this also is like a snapshot of this lady's thighs, and thighs in astrology are related to Sagittarius. Sagittarius is a fire sign known for education and higher learning, bigger philosophical beliefs, but also bluntness. I struggle sometimes with the Sagittarian energy. As much as I love their fiery, boisterous, party animal kind of energy, they're very entertaining, but also they can be very direct and blunt in a way that doesn't always sit right with me, you know? But I think that there's a lesson to be learned in that directness, is sometimes we have to be direct in order to make ourselves known. Like, I've been struggling in my own business because we just raised our prices for private events. And so it's really nerve-wracking for me when I book events to tell someone, like, this is our prices. This is just how it is. This is the layout, you know? And they can either say yes or no, but if I kind of teeter around that, they're going to find out eventually. So why not be direct? Like, no, this is our services. This is what we offer. No haggling, no negotiations. And you know what? People don't argue with that. And if they really can't afford it, they can't afford it. And that's fine, because again, our business is growing and like our gifts are valuable, and I don't want to undercharge me or the contractors that work under the Fortune of the Fool, you know, umbrella, because their gifts are worth being paid for. And also, we are all working together. We all need to be appropriately compensated for these things, you know? So I feel like this card is also about knowing your worth. Like, pinups are exuding this confidence about she knows who she is. And yeah, maybe she's wearing this cowboy costume, but also she knows at the end of the day that it's a costume, and she doesn't actually have to play that role if she doesn't want to. She can play it as long as she wants, but then she can move on to a different outfit, a different persona, right? And so that's something else that we need to remember about Pisces, is that they're a dual-bodied sign. Them, along with Gemini, are the only dual-bodied sign. And so to understand a dual-bodied sign is to understand that we're not always a monolith. You know, we're not always just one thing. We can be hypocrites within our own nature, because a part of us might want one thing and a part of us might want a completely opposing thing as well. You know, like, a part of me wants a lot of money because I want a lot of security and all those things. But another part of me, you know, rejects that, because I've seen in my society a lot of people oppress others or take advantage of other people's labor in order to gain that kind of wealth and money, you know? And so, you know, finding that balance is really important within us. So I just really want to remind you, like, of your own duality, and maybe also just the duality of other people as well, and how we're all very complex beings. And just because we're, you know, a Gemini, or we're a certain sign, we're a Libra, whatever, doesn't mean that we're always Libra. Like, that's just one sign in our whole chart of who we are. You know, so just taking into context that we are all complex beings, that's going to offer us a lot of good luck too, because just because someone shows up one way one day doesn't always necessarily mean that they're going to show up that same way another day, you know, especially in conflict. Like, someone, especially when we're emotionally charged about things. And I'm going to tell you right here, right now, Pisces is a very emotional sign. It's a water sign, right? And so when we sometimes show up in emotion, we're not always grounded in reality, and we're not always grounded in logic. right? And there's a beauty about being tapped into our emotions, but also there's a balance within that. So if we're too emotional, if we're too overcharged, sometimes we say some things that we don't actually mean, or say things that we regret, right? So I do feel like Spirit's also reminding us to reel it in, use our lasso to reel our emotions in and be honest about them, but also have a container, an appropriate container for them. Because again, you can't just curse out your boss if you're upset. You can write an email that is professional and very honest, but also you just want to use tact with how you move forward, because that will determine your story. If you yell at your boss, you might get fired. And if you wanted to grow at that business, that's not in alignment with what your goals are, right? And so if you want to stay where you're at, maybe writing that email and being more professional, that's the best way forward. Maturity is the best way forward, period, because you can always have the higher, if you're the bigger person, then you're more, you have the higher, I'm trying to say something like the higher footing or something. I don't know. But like, at least if you have integrity with what you do, you really can never go fully wrong, because at least you can live with yourself and your decisions, right? Whereas if you lash out or do something, you can't take that back. So be direct. Doesn't mean to be a doormat. No. Say your truth, but also just do it in a way that can be well received by your audience. Use tact, so then you're not putting yourself in a position where you tie yourself up, rather than get what you want with that tool. That's our good luck for the collective, okay? So that concludes our collective reading portion of this reading. We're now going to move into the pick a pile portion of the reading, where you get to choose between two options, or you could, again, listen to both if you feel drawn to. But this is going to get a little bit more specific into what you need to hear at this time, okay? So we have two choices here. Pile number 1 is going to be this beautiful crystal quartz. And it is like just one of a kind, so beautiful. And crystal quartz does symbolize clarity. And there's like a few points too. It's very direction oriented. So if you're maybe looking for some direction or clarity, pile number 1 will be a good choice for you. And pile number 2 is going to be this beautiful peacock ore. And I don't know if the camera is able to pick up how colorful and beautiful this peacock ore is, but it's really earthy, really strong and colorful. And I think of the peacocks as like strutting your stuff, embodying your confidence, and just being visible. It's like, yes, I'm visible, and no, I'm not going to shrink myself for anyone. There's no reason to do that. So anyway, you'll be a pile number 2 if you are feeling more called to that energy. So pile number 1, clear quartz. Pile number 2, peacock ore. And without further ado, we're going to start now with pile number 1s. You're a pile number 1 if you chose this clear quartz. I don't know what this would be called. Like, they're not prisms. They're not pointy. I don't know what they're called. But anyway, it's just a very unique clear quartz that my very magical friend Mia gave me for my 30th birthday this year. And I'm just kind of seeing clarity coming from different directions for this group. And so, like, first of all, how I see this crystal is like this. You could really put it in any direction, but this is how I think that it naturally, kind of lays, at least for the purpose of this reading. And so I see most of the points pointing up, which means that most of your clarity is going to be coming from spirit. It's going to be coming from signs. It's going to be coming from different directions, right? And then there's this other point, and from your perspective, that will be pointing to the past, right? From my perspective, it's looking to the future, but from your perspective, it is going into the past. So I'm just really feeling that, like, most of our clarity is going to be coming from our intuition, from spirit at this time, and maybe signs, like maybe you see a lot of angel numbers, maybe you see a license plate that is speaking directly to you. Maybe, you see an animal that reminds you, like I'll see a hummingbird and I'm like, I know my grandma's around, because before she passed away, she told me that she would come back as a hummingbird. So that's symbolic of her. So just really paying attention to spirit, or like your intuition. something greater than you. Again, like this is going to be more godly rather than like a gut thing, although sometimes spirit can speak to us through bodily sensations. So just really paying attention to maybe your prayer practice or like, you know, spiritual practice in whatever ways it's unique to you. And then also reflecting on your past and like, what lessons have you learned from the past, and leaning on like clarity through that, being like, oh, I'm realizing that this pattern in my life keeps reemerging because I keep making the same choice. And so if I change the choice, I can change the pattern, you know? So again, just because something has been true in the past doesn't necessarily mean that it'll be true in the future. So just really be informed by your past rather than defined by it, you know? So just because in the past you have always attracted friends who take advantage of you doesn't mean that you're not capable of having a very healthy relationship or friendship moving forward, you know? So just really understand your responsibility in that, and also understand how clarity can come from the lessons that you've already learned. Okay. So that'll be that. We're now going to draw a card from the Lovers Oracle and see what comes up. What is our love message for this group? And we have this beautiful tree, and it also has this eye. It's like a Egyptian eye. I forget what it's called. Literally, one of my students was just telling me about it the other day. It's an Egyptian eye. It starts with an H. Horus, Eye of Horus, I think, or something like that. And with the tree, trees symbolize to me ancestry. You know, that's our roots. But then as we grow, this is like we each have our own unique, you know, branch of the tree. You know, if you think of like a family tree, I think of a lot of ancestral stuff. That's the roots. But also, where are we growing? Where are we individually reaching out with whatever foundation was already laid for us? You know, and the back of the card says time. You are trying too hard. Give it time. And like, honestly, that's kind of making me emotional for this group. Like, I feel it in my throat and I'm feeling it in my eyes. Like, I feel like this is a really beautiful self-compassion message for this group, where it's telling you that you don't need to force things. Things are going to be unfolding with time. And, you know, a year in a human form seems like a long time in a lot of ways. But in the grand scheme of things, a year is a blink of an eye, right? Especially if we live a long time, you know, and the tree does indicate time. You can't build a tree without it having many seasons of growth, right? It's a very slow and steady moving process. So this is just saying that you're cultivating your legacy. You are creating yourself, you know, ring by ring in your stump of your life, you know, like each ring is a new year of life. And so I just feel like don't try to expect premature results before they're ready to grow. You wouldn't force a baby to be born before they were ready, you know, unless you're a C-section baby like me, who still has a little bit of beef that I feel like I was extracted a little too early. But again, that's my personal beef. But, you know, like that, I wasn't premature, you know, I was due any day, you know, so that C-section was appropriate, right? Whereas, you know, you're not going to take a baby out of its incubation process in the first trimester. It's not ready yet. It's not ready yet. So Spirit's really trying to extend a lot of self-love and compassion to this group, and just telling you and reminding you that things do have a divine timing about things. And just because something's not happening for you now does not mean that it won't happen for you later. And something that I'm being reminded of is like fame, for example. A lot of child stars, especially, or people in their youth, want to be famous, and they feel like failures if they are not famous or well known or recognized by a certain age. You know, they're like, oh, I'm like 18 and I'm not famous yet. Like, I'm so old. And it's like, you're just a baby, you know, like sometimes also that is a way of protecting us from the system. Like, if you're not famous before 18, that's probably a great thing, because now you're not being taken advantage by the system before you're even fully developed, and you have some time to develop a sense of identity before being thrown into an industry that is not very forgiving for its artists, you know? So this is just reminding you that, like, you know, who is that really famous Quentin Tarantino actor? He's German. I don't think he got famous until he was 50. And now he's like one of the most world-renowned actors, you know, and he wasn't famous until his like 40s or 50s. And so this is just saying, just because this has been ringing in my head quite often, is just because you've been denied something, or you're being delayed something, doesn't mean you're being denied of something, you know. So like that raise I was talking about in a previous reading, like I asked for a raise, didn't get it, but just because it was delayed doesn't necessarily mean it's denied. Doesn't mean that it's guaranteed either. But, you know, I have hope that like if it's meant to be, it will. And if it's not, then maybe that's where I'm going to like try to redirect some of my energy. Like, okay, this place is not honoring what I feel like I'm worth. And so I need to lean on maybe other income revenues so I feel more appropriately, you know, rejection can be divine protection and redirection, right? So this is also just reminding you that just because there's a no in one place doesn't mean that there's a no somewhere else. You know, when a door closes, a window can open. So time, you are trying too hard, give it time. So give it a rest. There's also a lot of peace within the tree. It's like steady and chill. So chill. Take a chill pill, pile ones, okay? Things will unfold in divine timing. And the card on the bottom of the deck is saying manifesting miracles. Your dream is soon to become reality. Trust your heart and continue to follow its guidance. So be patient. And with all this Aries energy in the sky, it can feel really challenging to be patient. We don't want to be patient. You know, Aries wants instant gratification. And it's like, no, that's not how life works. Manifestation doesn't just happen overnight. Sometimes it can, but not always. So especially things that are worthwhile, they often take more time to develop, you know. All right, we're now going to move on to the Animal Dreaming Oracle card deck. A lot of animals want to speak to you, apparently. We're going to get one animal, and it is the mouse, and it's a reversal. So we got mouse, and it says scrutiny, and the number is 2. So this is also interesting because this pile chose a crystal that my friend Mia gave me, and Mia's animal of the year is the mouse. And so I feel like maybe there's this kindredship of Mia's magic with this group, really about learning when to be quiet, when to, you know, scurry around. Because another, like, the thing about scrutiny, I don't actually know what the definition of that necessarily means, but how I'm imagining it, maybe this is how it actually is like when you're scrutinizing something, you're really picking it apart and you're looking at the details. It's very Virgo energy, right? And so I just feel like there's a lot of analysis going on with this group right now, and the mouse is such a beautiful fertile energy. I think about like mice reproduce really quickly. They're very adaptable. They're very cute as well. And also they are prey. And so especially with this reversal, I think spirit is trying to also acknowledge within this group that like protect your peace, protect your energy, because you could be prey to certain predators out there. You know, we all can be prey in some kind of way. We all can be victims of manipulation. We can all be, you know, there's always going to be a bigger fish, right? In some sort of realm. So just be safe. Acknowledge your environment. Acknowledge like who might be taking advantage of you or not being honest with you, or just not sharing all the information. 2 is also about partnerships. So just keep in mind, not that anyone is always malicious. Sometimes people are malicious, you know, but like, just protect yourself, be smart, don't get caught in the mousetrap, you know? And I feel like a bigger picture example of this is like the rat race, you know, of life, where it's like, who's profiting off of your labor? You know, if you work for a corporation, there's people at the top that are probably doing a lot less work, making way more money than the laborers at the bottom, you know? So if you choose to work there, I mean, in a way, I guess you're choosing to be part of the system, but also you can't really opt out of the system either entirely. So it's kind of a tricky energy I'm feeling with this, but just also remember the power of the mouse, which is like, again, the reversal is also like looking inward to like really acknowledging where your weaknesses are and where your strengths are within that mouse archetype. Like mice are very adaptable and they are small. They can go into small cracks and crevices. Like they can go into holes where the mouse can't. So, you know, they can provide safety for themselves from the predators, but also just being aware that you are smaller in certain ways. You are less powerful physically, maybe, or in other ways than the predators are out there. You know, like as a worker, for example, you know, the higher ups, they have more resources, they have more money, so they can buy lawyers and like easily oppress you so much easier than you could maybe even fight that, right? But this is also about really being strategic. It's also very blue, this card. And I don't know actually if a lot of these cards are blue. No, they're all different colors. There are a lot of blue cards, but this is my first time working with this deck. So blue is also about the throat chakra, communicating your truth, and using your words. So I feel like a mousy natured person would be maybe more quiet, softer spoken, all those things. And I think that can be a strength in a lot of ways. But again, sometimes we got to speak up. If you want something, speak up. You can't ask for a raise like, I would like to have a raise. It's like, no one's going to want to give a raise to someone who doesn't believe in their ability to deserve that raise. If you want a raise, you better demand it, you know? Well, you know, in a way, just speak it into, you don't have to be rude about it, but you need to be confident, right? And so I feel like Mouse is coming through for this group. The clarity is going to come from also asking questions and saying what you want and using your voice, and also knowing when and when not to, because there is a time and place as well. Like, don't ask your boss for a raise when they're in a bad mood. Like, I wouldn't do that. That's not probably a good idea. But if you see them in a good mood, it's a Friday, they have a weekend to maybe even think about it, you know, maybe you're just like, happy Friday, now's the time. Like, you're doing good, I'm doing good. I am really glad that this project went so well. And here is my proposal for what I would like in the future so I can continue to serve this company to my best of my ability. And that's kind of what I did. I got 2 really good reviews back to back at this job. And that's when I was like, this is a great opportunity for me to ask for this raise, you know? And here's the literal, it was an email. It's like, here's the literal proof of why I should have a raise. Since I got hired, I've improved my entertainment, I've improved my readings, I've improved my customer service. And this is what I would like. And again, that was denied at the time, and maybe it won't be honored, but I can feel good about, like, I don't feel bad. Like, in the past, there was a more mousy version of myself that would have been like, oh my God, it was so ridiculous for me to ask for that raise. Like, of course they would have said no, like all those things. But I'm like, no, I literally am worth the raise. And if it's not in their budget, has nothing to do with my worthiness or even their appreciation of me at that job. And they did say we can revisit it when the new year comes and the new budget gets, you know, evaluated. So, you know, don't let your worth be tied to rejection. That's not what it's about. Okay? But also speak your truth. Know there's a time and place, and just know your qualities. And sometimes it is better to be quiet, but also just know that the reversal just is kind of being loud to me, where it's like, that way that you're mousy, maybe you need to be more loud or be more visible. Because sometimes, like, I'm thinking of like Tom and Jerry, that cartoon where, you know, the cat chases the mouse, but Jerry the mouse is always causing, I don't know, I haven't watched Tom and Jerry in a really long time, but like Jerry is really creative in how, even though he's smaller and that he's the prey, he can trick the mouse or trick the cat, Tom, into a lot of different shenanigans, you know? Like, the mouse can also get the prey in a trap, or the mouse can also get the predator in a trap, you know? So just be aware, just because you might have fewer resources, just because you might be smaller, whatever it is, doesn't make you powerless, okay? You have strategy. Okay. The last card we're going to now choose for this pile is a Bren card from the Bren deck. And if you do get a reading with me, you'll get to go home with one of these bad boys. If you have a reading with me in person, obviously. But this card is going to show this group a message in regards to what's going to be bringing y'all the best luck moving forward. And we have this Barcelona card. I feel like this came up in the last reading as well, 2 weeks ago for the Leo new moon, which would make sense as well because the eclipses, 2 weeks ago was the solar eclipse, right? Yeah. And then this would be the lunar eclipse. So they come in pairs, right? So there might be an extension of, lessons from the last 2 weeks coming into this group that's going to offer you some good luck, but also just reflecting on like bigger picture stuff. And also maybe you want to check out the Leo new moon eclipse video that I did post 2 weeks ago if you want to get more further insights. But this is the Six of Swords. And in tarot, that really talks about you being on a journey. You've got swords in your boat, you've got your family. It's kind of like a refugee card where it's like, you've escaped the immediate danger of the war zone or wherever you were at, but you're also not in your home yet. You're not established yet. Like maybe you're safe right now, but you're not secure yet, And so I feel like this is just reminding you, especially with the imagery going on here, that there is security right through the doors forward. But you have to be the person who actually walks through those doors in order to gain that security. And the card also that's coming to mind is the Five of Pentacles, which talks about like people down on their luck outside this like church building. Honestly, that looks a lot like this one. And they're out in the cold, and they're choosing to be out in the cold because this is how I see it anyway, because their ego gets in the way of like, I don't need help. I know there's a soup kitchen inside, but I've got my pride and I'm going to be out here and I'm going to fend for myself. Right. And I think that's absolutely ridiculous. This is really about like, if there's an opportunity for you to gain a resource, why don't you take it? You don't need to be humble about that, In fact, it'd be idiotic not to take that resource, right? And also, it's not helping anyone else for you to be out in the cold starving, because if you went inside, warmed up, had some soup, then you could be the one that could then be helping people down on their luck, Then you've got that oxygen mask on, so now you can assist others put theirs on, So basically your good luck is helping yourself and walking towards the stability that is right beyond your reach. It's just right there. You got to just enter the door and start helping yourself, so then you can start helping others, right? But if you're not well resourced yourself, and I am feeling money stuff for this group, so it's like if you don't have your own savings, if you don't have your own retirement, if you don't have whatever, this is a long game, right? If you are not investing in your future, how do you expect to retire and then do volunteer work in your elder years, or show up for friends that need you, or show up for your grandkids or your kids who need care? Like, just give yourself more freedom by investing in yourself and not being frivolous with your resources, whatever that may be, whether it's your education or your material resources like money or your relationships. Okay, thank you so much, pile number ones, for watching this video. Like I said, my name's Bren, and I do in-person readings and virtual readings. So if you want something a little bit more one-on-one, more in-depth, more personalized for you, please book a reading with me. There's more information on how to do that in the show notes, but you can also visit fortuneofthefool.com to get more information about that. So thank you again so much. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. That would mean so much. And also, if you have your own personal shares or insights that you would like to share, please leave a comment. This is like a community space. Well, that's what I'm trying to cultivate here. So please be a part of the community. I would love to hear from you. And I'm sure other community members would also love to hear from you as well. So thank you, pile number ones. And without further ado, we are now going to move into pile number two's reading. You are a pile number two if you chose this Peacock Ore. I was going to call it a crystal, which I guess it is, but it's also a mineral. I went dancing last night and I was wearing a rose quartz earring. And this guy was like, oh, so you're really like, I really like your rose quartz earring or whatever. And I was like, oh, you're into crystals. That's so cool. And he's like, well, I'm a geologist. And I was like, oh, you're into minerals. Okay, cool. Because, I feel like the crystal people are more into the metaphysical properties, whereas, the mineral people are more into the practicality, which really is a great demonstration of what we're experiencing at this time of this recording with the, Pisces Virgo dynamic, because Pisces is very spiritual, dreamy kind of energy, whereas Virgo is very practical, down to earth kind of energy. So, we do need a mix of both for sure. But this is also really quite a heavy stone. This, it's got some good weight to it. So I do feel like this group is really going to feel grounded by really investing in your identity and investing in your understanding of your unique magic and your unique skill sets. Okay. So what I mean by that is, only you can be you. No one else can do that, right? And, we can be more basic than others. We can be more similar to the collective. You don't have to stand out for you to be unique, It's like sometimes, we need a lot of nurses. It's not unique to be a nurse. We need a lot of, service workers. We need a lot of servers. Does that make... The career itself isn't unique, but how you do it could be unique, So anyway, this is just really about seeing the magic in the mundane. This is about the everyday, day-to-day things that we have to do on a regular basis in order to make ends meet. So whether that's laundry or maybe cooking a meal, all those kinds of things, there's magic in every single one of those things if we believe in that and if we infuse what we do with magic and intention. So this is just reminding you that, it might not be fun to clean the dishes every day or whatever, but how can you find the magic of that task? Are you doing it for yourself? That's an act of self-love. If you're washing dishes for yourself, it's like, I'm so grateful that I'm doing this service for myself so I can have a clean kitchen and that I can have clean dishes so the next time I'm ready to eat, I'll be ready to go, right? But also you can clean dishes for your family or people you love, being like, I'm cleaning these dishes as an act of love and an act of service to those who love me. And I want my loved ones to have a nice kitchen and clean dishes to eat from. So I'm doing this thing for that. Or even if you have roommates and you're like, I'm just doing my dishes because that's our agreement. And there's magic in that too, because I know that if I follow through with what I agree to, the person that I am making commitments with, like a roommate, will hopefully also do the same. It's a relationship kind of thing. So definitely acknowledge that there's magic even in the mundane, and also you're unique. And so maybe you do things in a way that is very special. Like maybe, like going back to the nurse example, maybe you're the kind of nurse who loves to do a little magic trick for your patients to cheer them up. It's like, there's not a lot of nurses who take their time to do that, or maybe you're really good at compliments, like really genuine, heartfelt compliments that can really change someone's day, especially in a hospital setting that can be very scary for a lot of people. So, and I'm getting emotional there too. Like, we all can be healers on a day-to-day. You never know that your smile to a stranger across the street could change their day. I remember this one time, this must have been over a decade ago. I was in my car and I made eye contact with another person in a car, some guy, and I just said what's up? We just nodded. I nodded to him and he nodded back, and that was it. That was the whole interaction. But a decade later, I still remember that guy, and I'm just like, that really made my day. It was just so funny. We rolled up. It was like in a movie. We looked at each other in unison, and then we're like, what's up? And then we just drove away. Have I ever met that person again? I don't know, maybe, but I don't recognize his face, but I remember what I felt. And I remembered feeling connected to something bigger. And I just remembered the magic of that moment where it was just like, aren't humans so fun and cool? And can't life be so magical sometimes where we can just make a connection with someone and feel seen, even if it's for a minute, So remember your magic and use it. Because the more you understand your own magic, the more you can share it with the world, and the more that other people can benefit from you. So also just know that by you hiding your magic or hiding or not sharing your gifts, everyone suffers for that, and other people are not entitled to your gifts. Definitely not. But also your magic has a way of coming back to you. So the more that you share it, the more that you're going to receive of it. So just keep that in mind. We are now going to go and pick, we're not going to go anywhere. Well, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to now choose Why are you doing this, Spirit? Okay, I feel like they want me to pick from this deck first. We're going to choose an animal dream oracle card to start to see what animal is going to be offering this group some good guidance. And you have the magpie, and it is reversed. I'll put it up right for you so you can take a nice look at this card. And the card says balance, which is great. And the card number is 27. Now I got all burpy. There's a lot of air. And, you know, a bird is an air animal. So, although here it's saying that it's fire. Let me look, actually. This is a new deck for me, and I just want to make sure. I think it's an Australian deck as well, which is kind of cool. So, the magpie is all about balance. All right, I'm just going to read this part. Magpie is a doorkeeper to other realms, a guardian who lets only those willing to honor the sacred balance between the good and bad, light and dark, and feminine and masculine in all things to explore her world. If Magpie has swooped into your cards today, you are being guided to a place of awareness. You are being shown how to better understand the innate marriage between the opposites that are equal and the duality within all things. You are being primed for a deepening of purpose and a broadening of perception. I love this. Okay, so because it's reversed, this is also about understanding the duality within ourselves and the balance within ourselves. It doesn't matter what gender you identify with, you're going to have masculine and feminine qualities within yourself, right? You're going to have an active principle, and you're also going to have a receptive principle. And some of us have, especially if we're, you know, depending on our astrology as well, we might have more femininity than masculinity. We might have more of an active principle than a receptive principle in general. But we are meant to find balance not only within ourselves, but within our world as well. So if we naturally are more of that active person, if we're more masculine generally, we're probably going to need to find feminine energy within ourselves to either honor and like lean into more to feel balanced, or we need to lean on our external environment like people in order to balance us out, so we have that symbiotic kind of balanced relationship. Because if we're always going after something, if we're always active, how are we supposed to be receiving? You know, I'm kind of thinking about a father who's always trying to provide. But if he's always at work trying to provide, how is he going to receive the love from his family or be present emotionally and receive the love back? You know, if he's always feeling like he has to provide, you know, and it can go the other way as well. If we're always like here to receive, how do we ever go after what we want if we just sit there, you know? So there's a balance of both, and both are necessary in order for us to lead these balanced lives. And because there's a reversal here, I'm just really seeing that within ourselves, we need to acknowledge more of one thing over the other. And as someone who's been doing a lot of my own gender work, you know, that when I first realized I was trans, I really rejected femininity altogether, because I was like, I was over feminine because I was also overcompensating for what I didn't understand about my gender at the time, because I was a very like active woman, you know, I was just very assertive, very dominant. And so like I balanced my dominance out with a hyper feminine appearance, because I felt like that kind of softened the balance of like my active energy, you know. But like the more I go down my gender journey, especially now that I'm giving myself more permission of, just because I appear a certain way doesn't necessarily mean that I have to act a certain way. Like just because I look feminine doesn't make me a woman. Just because I decide to, you know, wear makeup doesn't make me a woman. I can still embrace the feminine parts of me I don't need to reject the feminine parts of me that are there just because people will assume something about me. You know, I get misgendered all the time because I do appear feminine in a lot of ways. But also, I don't want to also reject who I am either. I like makeup. I like to look hot, you know, and looking hot to me is how I look right now. You know, it's like, yes, I'm wearing a little bit of glam makeup and I have jewelry and I have, you know, kind of a feminine top on, but also they're ties. They're a masculine, you know, they're made of like a traditionally masculine accessory. And I'm also wearing my mustache, which is again a masculine thing. And so it's like, and I'm, you know, that's me finding my balance within this day of where I'm at. Because also you are a being, and so am I, that can be fluid. You know, we don't have to always be the same thing one day to the next. You know, that's the beauty of us having these beautiful avatars that we call bodies, you know. So I feel like spirit is just really trying to remind you to find balance within yourself and your truth. And also this card was talking about like connecting with the divine and spirit, things like that. Oh, we've got so many birds in here. It's the doorkeeper to other realms. So just really understand that like sometimes things are going to happen that we don't like, but also that helps us appreciate the things that when things do happen in our favor, then we do. Like I'm someone who has really good parking luck, right? And I'm very grateful these days and I always honor that. But back in the day, I was just like, yeah, I would get really frustrated that I wouldn't get good parking sometimes because I'm like, I should be entitled to good parking because I have good parking luck, you know, like it was weird to me not to have good parking luck, you know, because I was like, hello, I am a good luck parking person. Why isn't this happening? You know, but again, I've been humbled a little bit to now be like, no, it's a privilege to have good parking. It's not a right that I have. It's just like, you know, anyway, I think the point is really balance, and to with the air, just having balance with the mind space, especially, and just how you're processing things, because sometimes we're over processing here and we're not listening to our heart, but also it could be vice versa. Sometimes we're so emotional about something, we follow our hearts instead of following the logic of something. So having the balance of that, but also, yeah, I'm just feeling a lot of communication energy that could be helpful at this time with spirit as well, because like birds are keepers of both realms, the spirit realm and the earthly realm. So they can both fly, reach the skies, and they can be earthbound as well. So just really recognize that within yourself as well. Like, how are you uniquely connected to spirit, and how are you uniquely maybe connected to the earth as well? But now I'm also thinking like this group has a lot of connection to birds because we also have the peacock ore, so maybe peacock confidence, and also this magpie, maybe that means something unique to you, but just really honoring the wisdom that birds have to offer us. And when I think of birds, I think of a cage, unfortunately, because some people will keep a bird in a cage, and sometimes we are the bird that keeps ourselves in a cage. You know, sometimes we're in a cage that the door's open, but it can be so scary to leave that we stay in this cage even though a bird's meant to fly, you know. So I think we're all being urged in this pile to recognize in what ways are we able to fly, and what ways that we might be even keeping ourselves back by staying in our comfort zone a little too long or too much. Okay, now we're going to go on to the Heart Love Oracle, see what comes up for us. And we've got the tree. It looks kind of like the tree from the first pile, but it has a lady or a woman figure, a feminine figure on it, and it says, "Give thanks for the blessings of love soon to come your way. Know that you deserve to be and have all that your heart truly desires." And I feel like this is also recognition that love comes in a lot of different forms. It's not always just romantic love. It can also be like the love of a tree providing you shade. It could be the love of a stranger opening a door open for you. You know, there's love that comes in so many different forms. And in English, I do feel like we are so limited in our language in the sense of love, because there's only one word for something that encompasses. It's like love is an umbrella term, right? And it can mean specific kind of love, but it also is really hard to define in a lot of ways as well. Like I know other languages have more specific types of love, like, oh, this is the platonic love, and this is like romantic love, this is the love that we have for our children or whatever. You know, it's different. And yes, it comes from that same kind of place, but it's different. So this is just reminding you that love is all around you. And it's kind of funny that I was talking about good parking luck earlier, because what I do, this reminds me of what I do when I'm parking my car, because I will always try to park my car in front of a tree, because I believe that trees are protective. First of all, they also give shade. So like my car Boone really likes that, but also, they have root system, and I just feel like trees have some sort of gifts that I don't fully understand, but I do believe that they have influence with the environment around them, and I do believe that if we respect our trees, they will respect us and take care of us. So I often, if I park under a tree, especially trees that I'll park under often, like at my yoga studio, I park under the same trees a lot, I'll leave them a lucky penny offering, and I'll be like, thank you so much for taking care of my car. And sometimes they'll tell me their name. Like I have the two trees in front of my yoga studio are Penny and Polly, which is really cute. But I'll leave a penny offering, just be like, will you please take care of my car? This is like a penny offering that I have for you as a token of my gratitude. And, you know, it can seem psychotic in a way, like, what are you doing? Like that seems like a waste of money or whatever. But I'm just like, no, I really believe in that energetic exchange. And I believe in the love that we have for like each other. Like I love the tree and the tree loves me. And I know that the tree will protect me and my belongings and my property, my car, if I ask, you know. So give thanks for the blessings of love. Know that you deserve to be and have all that your heart truly desires. Just expressing love for the things around you and being grateful for that, because again, love is so much greater than just like a fairy tale romance kind of love. Okay. Oops. Last but not least, we're going to pick a card from the Lucky Bren deck. If you ever get a one-on-one reading with me, you will get, well, in-person one, you will get to take one of these bad boys home. And if you collect enough, you can make your own Lucky Bren deck. But anyway, this card is going to offer this group a good luck message. And it's a card from a game called What's Your Sign? It's like an astrology version of Cards Against Humanity. And it says, ... because your head is too small for your body. I feel like that's really interesting. I feel like that's kind of coming back to this magpie energy or card where it's like, you know, are you embodied or are you overthinking things? Or maybe are you too much in the feeling space? Because when I think of a small head, I'm thinking about someone who's not using their brain as much. They're less logic inspired. They're more, again, like instinctive, impulsive. I'm thinking of my poor little cat, who's actually very smart. I'm not saying she's not stupid by any means, but you know, she has a smaller brain. She functions differently. And just because her head's small doesn't make her stupid, but it also, you know, I do see her as more of an instinctual being and a less of an intellectual than I am, you know, like humans. Yeah. Anyway, so I think that your good luck is really going to come from making sure that you're being balanced with the wisdom of your body and the wisdom of your head. And maybe to really, I don't always give this advice. I don't usually it's the opposite way around, but I think for this group specifically is really about, well, I think you get to choose. Like if you're an overthinker, it's the opposite, right? But if you're an underthinker, or if you've lately just been following your heart, like I'm thinking of an example where someone's like, I'm really in love with my best friend's boyfriend and I know he's into me too. So I want to follow my heart, even though logically that is a bad idea. Bad idea. Not only are you sacrificing maybe a friendship and breaking trust there, but you're also, I don't know. It depends on the situation, but that's like also a lack of self-respect in a way, because it's like, don't sacrifice a friendship for a potential, you know, of something, I don't know. So anyway, just sometimes it's better to use your head, being like, yeah, maybe I have these feelings for this person, but it's not worth it. Like, think it through. Yeah, the heart wants what it wants, but also not everything the heart wants is good for you. So, or right to do. So, you know, just consider, like, maybe you need to use your logic and make a plan that's going to be your good luck. And then maybe for some of you is just to like make your head smaller and just be like, I'm overthinking things. I need to have better boundaries with my mental space, right? Okay, so thank you so much, pile number twos, for watching this video. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe, and even comment if you had some insights that you wanted to share with our community here. If you want a personalized, more in-depth reading with yours truly, you can book a reading with me either virtually or in person. I definitely recommend in person if you're in the Denver, Colorado area, but also you can get a lot out of a virtual reading as well. So feel free to book me through the information in the show notes or through fortuneofthefool.com. So thanks, y'all. Stay foolish. Mwah.